they can talk.
I now call the Finance Committee meeting to order at 6:45. Glasses.
I know.
Chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the consideration of claims.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to pay the amount of $469,326.21. Elon credit card in the amount of $1,063.34. Manual checks in the amount of $5,396.40, and payroll and liabilities for July 14th in the amount of $215,887.91. The total for that is $691,673.86.
Second?
Thank you. Are there any amendments or discussion on the claims? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Is there anything additional that the committee needs to review or to discuss?
I have nothing, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. In that case, the Finance Committee adjourns at 6:46.
I call the July 18th, 2023 regular meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 p.m. If you could please be seated so we could get started.
Try your microphone.
Thank you. Councilmember Cox, if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then I'll give us the invocation. Heavenly Father, we're grateful for the opportunity we have to meet as the City Council tonight for Riverton. We're grateful for the citizens of Riverton who trust us with serving them and representing them in this great city, and ask that as we speak tonight that we will be able to have our minds opened and we'll be able to make decisions that will improve our city and better our city. We're grateful for our first responders, for our police, for our ambulance services, our fire department, and all those who serve our city in various capacities, and ask that it please bless them with protection and a greater measure of ability to be able to serve well. We're so grateful for our citizens and their concern for our city, and ask thee to please bless us all that we will be able to have a productive meeting. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Would the Administrative Services Director please conduct the roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilwoman Carla Borders.
Here.
Councilwoman Lindsay Cox.
Here.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Here.
Councilman Dean Perronti.
Here.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Here.
Councilwoman Christy Salisbury.
Here.
Mayor Tim Hancock.
I am here. I declare we have a quorum. I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Larson with the motion, second by Councilwoman Borders. Any discussion or amendments to the agenda? Any changes we need to make, Mr. Butterfield? Are we good?
Your Honor, you're good.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Communication from the floor. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council regarding an item that is scheduled for a public hearing? So just so you know, that includes the Presbyterian Church rezone, the Redden Addition plat rezone. Those are scheduled for public hearings tonight. You will be given an opportunity to speak during that public hearing. If you would like to address the council on an item that is not scheduled for a public hearing, please feel free to come up to the podium. I'd ask that you identify yourself and the group that you're with if you're with an organization. If you're an individual, I'd ask that you keep your remarks to about 5 minutes, just so we can keep the meeting moving along. If you're with a group, I'd ask that you split up between the members of your group with about 10 minutes. So is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak? You can come on up, sir. You don't have to have my permission. I'm just telling you, this is your time.
So I have I'll try and read it, but I'll probably just talk. So I would like to talk today about an issue that we're facing with our police department right now. And to start off with, I would just like to thank pretty much all of you. I've been catching a lot more of the city council meetings than I normally would have, and I recognize just the difficulty of your job. There are so many things that impact so many lives that it's just impossible to make everyone happy, and I think that you are benefiting people in ways that we'll never really know. And so I do want you to know that I recognize that, and I'm very thankful for what you guys are doing. That having been said, I would like to talk about something that I don't think is, just to be clear, I don't think it's your fault. I don't think it's anyone's fault, but it is a serious issue that is coming, and I think it does need to be addressed. And many of you might not know I'm a chaplain for the Riverton Police Department, and I'm not here in that capacity. Definitely not in that capacity. I don't have the authority to speak to anyone in that capacity, and so it's not in that. I'm a pastor at Neighborhood Alliance Church, and I'm not speaking in that authority. I am speaking as a citizen, and I forgot to say my name, Cade Bickle. What else did I forget?
Well, that was all.
Oh, my name, Cade Bickle. And so I'm not speaking in any of that capacity, but I do have a fair amount of time spent with officers on a regular basis, and I would like to say that there is something coming up that's kind of a concern, and that is our officers are in a difficult position right now where they are completely overworked. And not only are they overworked, they are underpaid. And I don't know if, I would imagine you were aware of this. Riverton is a phenomenal town. I love it here. I chose to move here. I didn't grow up here. This is somewhere where I looked at and I thought, that's where I want to live. If everything goes right, I hope to retire here. And so I love Riverton. But there is this part of Riverton that is just interesting, and that is we get to be classified as the most dangerous city in Wyoming. And we can take a look at internet records, look at data, and that's kind of where we end up. But the reality of it is while we are the most dangerous city in Wyoming, it still is Wyoming. We're not downtown Los Angeles. We're not Chicago. It's realistically not as dangerous as those places, but we do have an entirely larger amount of crime than every other city in Wyoming, and that is violent crime. Property crime, we don't get to be number one. Cheyenne took that from us, and so last year we were number one. Now they get to be number one. So we are still considered the most dangerous town in all of Wyoming, and with that, our officers are paid the third lowest. That means there are 2 other towns in Wyoming that pay their officers less than us, and no other town has the call volume that we have. Our officers are currently running at about 50% staffing, which means that we are short a lot of officers. And with that, if something doesn't change in the near future, I would suspect that we stand to lose a lot more. And that's actually what I'm standing here in front of you today for, is I would like to find a way to put an end to losing our officers. I would like to find a way to maybe come up with money to keep them. I recognize that it is difficult. I recognize the city has no money. I'm in the same city you guys are. I'm in a house in the city you guys are in. So none of us have money. I get that. But something has to change or we will not have police officers here in the future. The truth of the matter is, while we want our officers to sacrifice for this job, while we ask our officers to sacrifice financially for this job, no other person in the city has to sacrifice their life, or even consider sacrificing their life for this position. And I believe that we ask far too much of our officers to sacrifice both their life and to sacrifice financially. And I think it's something that we desperately need to fix. And how I propose we fix that is, I honestly have no idea. This is the first time I've ever talked with everybody. I've had a great conversation with Kyle today and understood just the difficulty of your position. But the truth of the matter is, there are people out there who will pay our officers more. We will train our officers and they will go somewhere else for way more money, for way less responsibility. And what we will be left with are the officers who can't get those other jobs. So the quality of our police department will realistically decline. And I think Riverton is not a place where we need that. I think our officers need to be in a spot where they can focus completely on their work. And as an example, I think that a recent event that happened the last time I rode with them was there was a shots fired call over on Fremont Avenue, and the suspect ran into City Park, and they had a great description of him, so the police knew exactly who he was. So they bailed out of their car, they had their ARs out, and they saw this guy halfway through the park, and the park was full of families picnicking. The skate park was full. There were several other parties happening at the same time. And now we have these 2 officers going after one individual in a group of all of these people and trying to make everyone safe. Legitimate gun. They got him. No accidents. But the problem is, imagine what they have to think about as they go to bed that night. They had their guns out in a park full of kids, park full of families, and anything could have gone wrong. And I think it's foolish to think that they're not thinking about that as they go to bed. So with the added stress of that, the added stress of the financial burden that we're placing on them, I seriously suggest that we find a way to fix this. And to start with, I would like this to be, at some point, something that the council talks about in this kind of a session in the future. We have got to do something different. Also, maybe suggest having some kind of a committee to help figure out a way to end this, to solve this problem. But I promise you this is a problem that needs fixed. This is something that I think requires our immediate attention, and we need to go out of our way to solve it. So if there's anything else I can answer, ask, anything else?
Appreciate you coming in. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Go ahead. You can just come up.
You would just come up? Okay. Some of you know me, some of you don't. So as a formal introduction, I'm the owner of Twice Been Nice Thrift here in Riverton. I'm also a representative of #StepUpRiverton. We are a group of business owners that have gotten together. And our initial focus was to clean up some of the problems that the city of Riverton faces and that we face as business owners. And then it quickly turned into something else. There was a city meeting that was held, a meet and greet for the mayor and Mr. Butterfield and the chief. And many were disappointed. The only person that took any interest among you city council members was Ms. Carla Borders. And we're wondering why none of the others took any interest in this when it's such a big thing going on right now. The city of Riverton has a very short-staffed PD, is what we learned. During the public meeting and greet, it was discovered that there was only 13 officers at that time. Since then, down to 11 is my understanding. And in the last few days, I've spoken to several officers at the police department who has disclosed that they are currently looking or going elsewhere. And minutes before this meeting, I got a phone call that could be very damaging to the city of Riverton if it occurs. And we need to do something. We need to do better for our officers. We need to do better for our city. We need to do better for our citizens, our businesses, the entire community. It is not fair that this city is operating the way that it is currently. We're experiencing a huge spike in crime, and it's not petty crime, it's violent crimes. These are affecting officer safety. They can't respond to a call with backup. They don't have anybody to back them up. It's not fair to them. Our businesses aren't safe. We've covered that. I'm going to echo a lot of what the gentleman before me had just talked about. We have done our part as a group to develop a networking system, so we're kind of notifying everybody as with what problems we're having and what we're facing and where these individuals are moving to, trying to relieve some of the pressure off the police department. Funding seems to be a major issue when it comes to the police department and our officers. Some suggestions for the solutions, the possibility for a 1% tax increase with all that revenue going directly towards law enforcement agencies in the county. To pay for hiring, pay equipment, whatever they need. Grants, if we can find somebody to write grants for the police department, that would be helpful. Hosting a job fair, possibly. Showcasing the police department to get some more interested folks in there. Kids don't want to be cops anymore. Nobody does. It's not a fun job, and we're completely aware of that. I do want to take a minute and thank what the city has done. We've been working with the mayor, Ms. Butterfield, and the chief, and we have seen significant effort with what little police staffing they have. And it's made a difference. When they're able to proactively police, we're not seeing the problems that we do when they have to reactively police. So I don't want to blast them for lack of anything that they're unable to do, because they're short-staffed and they're doing the best they can with what they have. And I hope that the officers that are there currently give a chance to the chief. He's new, he's learning, he's working through some of these issues. But he can't do it all himself. And their pay is dependent upon you guys. I did a really informal, brief study on what base pay is for officers around the state in similar communities, populations, that kind of stuff. And Riverton is on an average $7,000 per officer behind the curve. And I think in order to rectify that, I'm going to officially ask that the city council consider a $10,000 per officer per year wage increase. That would not only close the gap but also make Riverton a more appealing place for other officers who are already certified to come and work. And getting certified officers cuts down training time and things like that. I'd also like to ask for a $5,000 per officer retention bonus, effective as soon as possible. These officers that have bent over backwards for this city the last few months, working 12-hour shifts, coming in on their days off, coming in to work special events that are being held, need to be compensated for what they're doing. These guys are gold to this city, and they need to be treated as such. One more suggestion or possible solution. The City of Sturgis Police Department hires temporary officers during their Sturgis rally. And I don't know if that's maybe a page out of the playbook that the city can look at and send out via NCIC or your teletype system to get officers who have additional time to come in and help relieve some of the stress off these officers so that we can retain them. We need to save who we have on this police department. It's important. This city does not run without it. We're looking for you, council members, to uphold the current policies and create new ones. We're looking to you to make this happen. Riverton and surrounding areas can't do so without a police department. Fremont County Sheriff's Office, it is not adequately staffed to handle the call volume that comes into Riverton Police Department and their own, nor is it their responsibility. Our police department will fail, our city will suffer greatly, tax revenue will be lost, people will leave to safer areas, and businesses will close. And it needs to be a priority. I cannot stress that enough. And I'm very passionate about it. After serving, having a husband serve, excuse me, served 22 years with no backup in this county, with crap pay. These officers deserve more, and it's up to you to make it happen. The money's there. Find it. And you get it to them as soon as possible, and you get our city safe. It's not a safe community right now, and it needs to be. And Mr. Larson, I would appreciate your full attention. You cover our area. And it's important that you take this seriously.
Ma'am, I do take it seriously.
You've been looking at your phone this entire time, and that's incredibly disrespectful.
The issue.
If you're trying to get my goat, you have.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Keep our officers safe. They deserve it. They should always come first, and it's up to you to make sure that they do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thank you. Appreciate it. Anybody else?
Hopefully I'm going to lighten the air a little bit. I'm sorry that was a little bit. Hello, I'm Lloyd Bynan with Fremont County Roller Derby. And we've purchased this sport court to play roller derby in Riverton or Fremont County somewhere. And we need a place to put this court down. And we are going to propose to you to try to put this down in the tennis court in the city park. We have enough flooring to cover most of the tennis court. And that way we can bring some bouts to Fremont County. I'm going to let Jenny speak.
Hi, so this is Lloyd, our coach. I'm Jenny Ovied. I'm the president and assistant coach. Thank you. This is Bronwyn, our PR lady. And Cammie is our treasurer. So we're all here today hoping to get approval to put this flooring down. We have, the reason this kind of started with City Park is we were approached by Garrett LeBeau, who oversees the Sugar Beats music venue, He has asked us to try and set up and have a game during the Sugar Beets concerts to just kind of bring extra people out, make it a little more well-rounded of an event. And we would like to do that, but setting up our floor takes a very long time, and trying to set it up for one day it's a big task. It involves a lot of people. So Lloyd, our coach here, started talking to people with the city, and so we're trying to figure out how we can get this set up at the park for a little more long-term use, preferably throughout the summer. So we recently had a meeting with Dan Adcock, Brian Eggleston, and Rusty Davis with the Parks Department. And they all had really great things to say, good feedback, didn't seem to think it would be a problem. So I sent an email over to Dan Adcock, and I'm basically just going to read that to you right now so you understand kind of what all we're trying to do. So this is a proposal from Fremont County Roller Derby to lay temporary sport court, that's what Lloyd showed you here, tiles on the tennis court at Riverton City Park for summer use. We hope to use a portion of the tennis court, not the entire thing, for summer practices and games. This includes Monday and Thursday evening practices for our adult and junior leagues, and occasional Saturdays for hosting games. This would involve installing removable vinyl sport court tiles over the top of the tennis court surface on the west side of the court. The sport court surface is also good for tennis and pickleball use, so putting our flooring down is not going to take away any of the other activities that might be used there. We would like to remove the metal posts along the area of the court for skater safety. We are a contact sport. Kind of think about it like hockey, like we wouldn't want to be running into any of those posts. Let's see. So the park staff has indicated to us that tennis is really no longer played at that city park court, that if tennis games are happening, they are elsewhere. And only pickleball is played there, which they use their own freestanding net, so we shouldn't be interrupting any of that. And they honestly seemed interested in the possibility of using our flooring to play on. The flooring that we have is removable, can be moved on the off chance that some tennis event or some other event needs to take place. We can pull it up and move it. We also could potentially install metal sleeves. We had discussed that with the parks guys, just if it would be necessary to have a tennis event, we could put some sleeves in the ground so that temporary poles could be put in. So it wouldn't completely get rid of the possibility for tennis in the future. Kind of hope that would be unnecessary because it doesn't seem like it's getting used for that right now, but, you know, just to make it more accessible. Fremont County Roller Derby was established in 2016. We carry our own team insurance as well as individual policies. So every skater is required to have our own policy for safety, for injuries, etc. And then we also are covered for any damages that our possible use could cause. Details of the policy can be provided if that is helpful for you. We are a nonprofit 501c3. And we also really love providing recreation opportunities and just giving back to the community. Like if there are things that we can do to improve our recreation spaces, we do a lot of fundraisers for local organizations. If there are things that the folks of Riverton see that we could do to be helping with our recreation spaces or helping with our public use spaces, we're happy to jump in and volunteer, fundraise, whatever that might mean. Yeah, we had a really great meeting at the park, and we're super excited to finally be able to have a home game. Hopefully. Like I said, we've been around since 2016. We practice at the fairgrounds, which is great, but there's not enough space to be able to host a game. So, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, we'll move on. Would the Administrative Services Director please read the consent agenda items by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes, July 5th, 2023 regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes, July 18th, 2023 Finance Committee meeting. Approval of the Finance Committee recommendations, July 18th, 2023. Open container permit application, Bar 10, Sugar Beets Concert at City Park, July 22nd, 2023, from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. Open container permit application, Bar 10, Sugar Beets Concert at City Park, August 12th, 2023, from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Thank you. Are there any other items requiring further discussion?
Your Honor, the Finance Committee met before our meeting tonight. We agreed to pay consideration of claims in the amount of $469,326.21. The Elan credit card in the amount of $1,063.34. Manual checks in the amount of $5,396.40. Payroll and liabilities for 7/14/23 in the amount of $215,887.91 for a total of $691,673.86.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Cox with the motion, Councilwoman Salisbury with the second. Any discussion, amendments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. All right, National Night Out. Chief of Police, report, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So tonight I'm just going to do a brief overview of what's coming for the community. On August 1st, millions of neighborhoods will be celebrating National Night Out across all 50 states. As of today, we have 7 cities that will be participating on August 1st on the National Night Out. So we're going to have our event at the fairgrounds. It'll be held from 3 to 6 p.m. This is a free event. This is our way to give back to the community, have community involvement. Community helps us with game prizes, gift certificates, and the way that we serve the community back is give those prizes back, serve hot dogs, meals during the event. It'll be a pretty fun event. Been doing it for 10 years. It's a carnival-style games for 3 hours. There'll be different raffles and displays for that time. Right now, our list of for displays, we'll have obviously our police department participating in also the 911 dispatch center. Our volunteer fire department and our ARF truck will be doing a display also from the airport. And we believe we're going to have a helicopter on display that's getting worked out now, and maybe ambulance. And we're waiting word on Highway Patrol and the Sheriff's Office if they're going to be able to help participate in Tuesday's event. Starting at 3 o'clock, we'll be serving hot dogs, chips and a drink. We'll be serving until 6 o'clock or they're all gone. Games will be open from 3 to 5:30. Like I said, we'll have the ARF truck on display. They'll be doing a demonstration. Fire rescue will also be doing an extrication demo using Jaws of Life. I believe they found a car to cut up during one of the events there. And we'll have a grand prize at the very end. And we're just looking forward to having this event. This should be sizably bigger than what we've had before. It usually starts off small and it gets bigger and bigger each year. So hopefully this will set the pace for years to come. And I'm ready for any questions. Anybody have any questions that I can answer? I have a couple of pictures of some National Night Out events that I've helped participate in the past.
And Chief, I just have a question. At the fairgrounds, that's during fair, so where will this be located?
This will be at the, I'm kind of looking through Carol.
Is it the little window building, that area
Yeah.
behind the little window?
Gotcha.
For the strawberry hoop houses, you guys know those.
Behind the lunchroom?
Look for the big fire trucks, the hot dogs. Will come.
Helicopter.
Roll down the windows, you'll find us. But we'll be set up early that morning and have it open for during the event. And we are still looking for some assistance if anybody knows any business owners, managers that'd like to help facilitate some prizes. We'll be glad to accept some raffle prizes too.
Good deal. If you need somebody to dunk, I think Mr. Bailey offered.
I think he offered to drive you there.
Yeah, offer to get the mayor there.
I mean, there's one thing to have the mayor get dunked. It's another when you sell gasoline in town, too. That's.
Oh.
All right, well, thanks, Chief. This is August 1st.
August 1st, it'll be before.
Starting at what time?
At 3 o'clock, and we'll end right at 6 o'clock.
3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, just in time to get to the city council meeting that evening.
Absolutely.
All right.
Might bring some leftovers if there's any.
All right, well, thank you very much for telling us about that, and I hope we get a lot of folks from the council there and from the public here.
And if there's any groups that would like to help participate or sponsor a booth, we're having our next meeting in the council chambers next Monday at 5:30. So if there's any nonprofit groups that want to help out and help staff a booth, we'll gladly accept. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Can I ask a question? How is it being advertised to the citizens?
I believe Ernie and I may have an appointment coming up soon. To advertise on the radio. There's banners that started going up last week. I think one or two more today and throughout the week. We'll be on our Facebook, maybe in a newspaper or two. It should be pretty well covered.
Already saw it.
Oh.
My calendar.
Thank you.
We'll probably have it on the city Facebook page and the city webpage as well, I'm sure. But that's a good question. All right, Citizen Board appointment, Edge Committee. Did you want to do the report on this, Mr. Butterfield? Did you have anything prepared for that?
Whatever's your pleasure. We do have a vacancy on the Edge Committee. One of our full-time members is taking a position in another community, and so in order to fill that vacancy, you as a council have an opportunity to look at community members. There are currently 2 alternates on the Edge Committee, and through some discussion with Mayor Hancock, it's proposed that Jack Schmidt serve that role, moving from alternate to the full-time member of the committee.
And so we had in the report or the packet that there was the possibility of Mr. Saltzgaver. He was happy with the role that he currently serves as an alternate. I spoke with Jack Schmidt. He was willing to move forward and serve as a board member for Edge. And so my recommendation would be to appoint Jack Schmidt as a new member of the Edge Diversify and Grow Our Economy Committee. If there's any motion in that regard.
I would so move.
And I'll second.
Mr. Bailey with the motion, Councilman Paranto with the second. Any other discussion or amendments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion passes. All right, next one, Citizen Board Appointment, Tree Board. City Administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. The tree board is established by a municipal code, and we also have had a vacancy that has come up on the board. And similar to what we just did with the Edge Committee, we would like to propose that one of the alternates, Ryan Axhelm, move to that full-time vacancy. But there's also been interest submitted by another community member, Holly Cassidy, and we propose that she be appointed as an alternate to that board to basically replace the vacancy in the alternate position by Mr. Axhelm.
Thank you. Yeah, I spoke to Ryan. He was very willing to serve as a member of the tree board, is excited for that opportunity. He was going to be here tonight, but he said he had to officiate at a softball game, I guess, so he was not able to make it. And Holly Cassidy, I spoke to her. She was willing to serve as an alternate member, so my recommendation would be to appoint them, Ryan as a member of the tree board and Holly Cassidy as an alternate member. Are there any motions in that regard?
Your Honor, I'll move that we appoint Ryan Axhelm to the committee, to the tree care committee, and assign Holly Cassidy as an alternate.
I'll second that.
Motion by Councilman Pronto, second by Councilwoman Borders. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion passes. All right, consideration of ordinance 23007, third and final reading. Clerk and Treasurer, City Administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. This ordinance has passed unanimously on 2 different occasions. This is third reading, and essentially it amends the references to city clerk and city treasurer in Riverton Municipal Code. From a general perspective, a clerk is the general record keeper and recorder for the city or town, and all major actions, records, and transactions are completed and filed by the clerk's office. The clerk is further responsible for the actions of the governing body, meetings, public hearings, liquor license renewals, et cetera, et cetera. The treasurer is the custodian of all monies belonging to the city. The duties of such custodian are to receive all monies belonging to the municipality, keep accounts and books in a manner prescribed by law, keep the municipality's money separate and distinct from personal and other funds, disperse monies, et cetera, et cetera. Both of these positions are required by state statute. Through the years, references to city clerk and city treasurer have taken several forms in municipal code. The position of clerk, for example, has stood on its own. It's also been referenced as an administrative service director. The position of treasurer has also taken on different forms, whether it be tied to the clerk position or to a finance director position. The proposed ordinance amends the city clerk chapter and the finance director chapter to basically list it as a city clerk and then a city treasurer position. And we recommend that this be adopted on third reading.
Thank you, Mr. Butterfield. Would the Administrative Services Director please read ordinance 23007 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. An ordinance amending Title II, Administration and Personnel, to revise Chapter 2.12 City Clerk and Chapter 2.13 Finance Director of the Riverton Municipal Code and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith and providing for an effective date.
The chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 23007 on third and final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Cox, second by Councilwoman Borders. Any discussion or amendments? Would the Administrative Services Director please conduct a roll call vote?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilwoman Carla Borders.
Aye.
Councilwoman Lindsay Cox.
Aye.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Aye.
Councilman Dean Peranto.
Aye.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Yes.
Councilwoman Christy Salisbury.
Aye.
And Mayor Tim Hancock.
I vote aye. Motion passes. Consideration of ordinance 23008, second reading Riverview Cove, subdivision rezone. Community Development Director's Report. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
Your
Miller.
Honor. Council. As stated before in the first reading, Riverview Cove was annexed into the city of Riverton in March of 2022. It is a subdivision consisting of 5 lots currently. 4 of those lots are zoned R1, and 1 lot is currently zoned Commercial C1. The 4 lots that are currently zoned R1 were originally proposed and intended to be zoned R2A in discussions and their plat and annexation paperwork. When we processed the final document and filed that paperwork, a clerical error was discovered that those 4 lots were written in as zoned R1. So then, as recorded, they got recorded as R1. Due to this error, is being petitioned by the city of Riverton to rezone these 4 residential lots from R1 to R2A. Rezone notifications by letter and posted signage have been done with no responses opposing the rezones that have been received formally by the City of Riverton. The City Planning Commission recommended approval on June 22nd, 2023, and City Council approved ordinance 23-008 on first reading on July 5th of 2023 regular meeting. Is a recommendation of staff that City Council approve on second reading ordinance number 23-008, rezone of Riverview COVE subdivision lots 1, 2, 3, and 4. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would the Administrative Services Director please read ordinance 23008 by title only?
Thank you, Your Honor. An ordinance amending the zoning district map of the City of Riverton, Wyoming, designating the rezone of Riverview Cove subdivision, lots 1, 2, 3, and 4, City of Riverton, Fremont County, Wyoming, from Residential District R1 to Residential District R2A.
Chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 23008 on second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Peranto with the motion, Ms. Cox with the second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion passes. All right, public hearing and consideration of ordinance 23009, first reading, read in addition, plat and annexation. Community Development Director's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor, Counsel. The petitioner, J. Redden, is requesting plat and annexation of the Redden addition as presented tonight. The proposed parcels are already adjacent to the current city limits. These lots are located along Raintree Drive, just north of Sandstone Circle. There are 5 lots being proposed for the subdivision, each zoned residential district R2A. Utility reviews were sent to all utilities with no exceptions. Neighbors were notified of the annexation with no responses received. A subdivision agreement will be required for the petitioner to put in a single fire hydrant to cover the lots for fire suppression system, as water services and sewer services already exist on Raintree. And a copy of that subdivision agreement was included in the packet, but I did hand out an updated copy of that subdivision agreement. If you look between the two of them, Section 7 and Section 8 clarifies what installations are to be proposed by Mr. Redden in the subdivision agreement, and they're furthermore stated as that statement in there. I was trying to clear that up. That is to council for language review and to Mr. Redden for language review as well. It is my recommendation at this time that the city adopt on first reading ordinance 23-009, Redden subdivision requesting plat annexation.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. The chair would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Larson with the motion, Councilwoman Orders with the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion passes. I vote aye. I now declare the public hearing open. This hearing will be conducted in accordance with state statutes and other applicable laws. I'd ask those individuals wishing to address the council to approach the podium. Identify yourself for the record. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak? This is regarding the Redden subdivision.
Seeing none, Your Honor, I would recommend we close public hearing.
Second.
A motion to close the public hearing by Councilman Larson, second by Councilman Bailey. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. I vote aye. Motion passes. I declare the public hearing closed. Chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 23009 on first reading.
Your Honor, may I read the ordinance by title only before you vote, please?
Well, I guess, because that's required by state statute. Either that or you could read the entire ordinance. Which would you prefer?
I will read the ordinance by title only. Thank you.
Please do so.
An ordinance annexing the Redden addition, Fremont County, Wyoming, not previously annexed to the City of Riverton, designating the zoning classification of the parcel and amending zoning map to reflect same, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. I kind of skipped that part, and I appreciate you catching that. Okay, now, the chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 23009 on first reading.
So, second.
Motion by Councilman Peranto, second by Councilwoman Cox. Any discussion on that?
there any, Your Honor, is there any expense in that? The sewer's there, the water's there, taps are there, so there would be not an expense to the city?
Mr. Miller?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman, yes, the water main is existing in Raintree, and the sewer main is existing in Raintree, and so those water taps and sewer taps would be provided as the lots would sell and individuals would build. The only build out required for construction was the fire hydrant that's required, that's going in towards the center of Lot 3 to cover the development for fire suppression. There is no cost or expenditure to the city of Riverton at this time.
We would be taking on, though according to the subdivision agreement, and as we would normally do, the maintenance of the fire hydrant going forward, though.
Yes, after the 1 year warranty of the work provided, then yes, we would pick up the maintenance of said fire hydrant. Yes.
Thank you. Any other discussion or amendments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion passes. All right, public hearing and consideration of ordinance 23010, first reading, Presbyterian Church. Community Development Director's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Council, this is the Mike Miller night. Presbyterian Church Edition replat lots 2 and 3 are lots located along Elk Drive at the corner of North Broadway and Elk Drive. The lots are located in a residential district R2 zone and east of a residential district R1 zone. The lots are currently zoned as residential R2, and the petitioners, which is the Presbyterian Church, are requesting to rezone this lot to an office in an institutional district CO. United Presbyterian Church is requesting this rezone to facilitate the sale of those 2 lots. The potential buyers would need the lots to be zoned CO to have their business facilities located on those 2 lots. The intended use by the buyers is for a human health facility, specifically a human or a behavioral health facility geared towards children and families. The City Planning Commission recommended approval on July 6, 2023 of this. And to go furthermore into some notes here, CO as a commercial district is intended to intermingle with nearby commercial facilities and nearby residential zones. Examples of other CO zoned residential or CO zones in residential neighborhoods, districts, or regions is the Sage West Hospital region by the high school. That whole area, the high school and the hospital and everything is all zoned R2, and then the hospital is zoned CO. The First Energy building on 8th and Sunset, the southeast corner of 8th and Sunset, is a CO building. The 12th Street Medical Facility, which is now owned by the tribe, and they have a medical facility put in there, is a really good example of a transition from an R2 to a CO. It used to be the old school on the east side of town, and now it's old school or hospital, and now it's set up as the 12th Street Medical Facility. The Riverton Fire Hall on South Broadway was also an old school property that was zoned CO and converted over to a fire hall. One thing that's also to be noted on this, we sent out letters to property owners within 140 feet of the properties adjacent to this, and we sent out 13 letters, and we got 3 of those letters come back confirmed from property owners that were negative in nature in disapproval. And so that disapproval voting by state statute, we call it the rule of 5, requires a city council vote of 5 to be able to pass this. It's referred to as a supermajority sometime, but it is the rule of 5. It takes 5. So if there's 5 members of council, all 5 members of council would need to vote on that. On top of those letters of disapproval, we also received 57 letters of disapproval from other members of the whole big game subdivision region. Those letters are documented in my office. There may be more today. The last count that I had was 57, though, on those. And I would stand for any questions.
Thank you, sir. Would the Administrative Services Director please read ordinance number 23010 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. An ordinance amending the zoning district map of the city of Riverton, Wyoming, designating the rezone of Presbyterian Church Edition, replats Lot 2 and 3, City of Riverton, Fremont County, Wyoming, from Residential District R2 to Commercial District CO.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Bailey, second by Councilwoman Borders. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
I vote aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I now declare the public hearing open. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with state statutes and other applicable laws. I'd ask those individuals wishing to address the council to approach the podium, identify yourselves for the record. I imagine a lot of you are here for this, so please feel free to come up. You don't have to get my attention and wave. Just come up to the podium, and if there's somebody ahead of you, you can get behind them and get in line if you like, or just wait, come up one at a time. Either way is fine.
Absolutely. I figure I'd kick things off here. I'm probably going to give a little bit of background. My name's Quinn Peterson. I'm an owner and CEO of Path Wellness Solutions. We are the folks trying to buy the church from the Presbyterian Church. I have 3 topics I'd like to address, and then 2, also, I'll be here for questioning and answers, so if there's further questions that the community or the council would like to hear from me, I'm open. We're an open book. So first, I think there's a misconception about the services we offer. It's not an inpatient, no one's sleeping there. We're not bringing in troubled youth from other communities to stay here in this facility. I would ask the council and even the community here a question. What services were sought from your neighbors, your community, church members, fellow congregants? What services were sought after at the Presbyterian Church? Any answers? Or is this something too formal where you guys can't answer?
This is your time.
Sure. Well, so I would dare say that this question is a little rhetorical, because the same services that people are going to church for come seek services for us: guidance, leadership, a ear to listen, a shoulder to cry on. Those same services are the services provided by Path Wellness Solutions via our counselors and our therapists, who I've brought some with, who are neighbors, community members. So the services we're going to offer from that location do not differ from the services there historically from the Presbyterian Church. It may be secular, maybe non-denominational, but we're hoping with the mental health crisis here in Riverton, and you hear it, the police are overworked. You can't tell me that doesn't relate right back to mental health, right? We're working hand in hand with law enforcement to try to stop that revolving door. Those are the services we're providing. Second, here in Wyoming, I'm hoping that we're still pro-business, and our organization brings above the median income of Riverton jobs to your city. We are recruiting heavily. We are attracting. We have an intern who just came from the University of Laramie in Wyoming that we're recruiting to come work and live in your community, spend money at your small businesses, and contribute tax dollars to give raises to your police folks here. These are high-paying jobs. If I do say so myself, we pay well. We're not ashamed of that. We're trying to pay better. Mental health is a huge topic, right? We offer benefits. We're ensuring your fellow community members, right? We offer paid holidays, paid time off. These are good, well-paying jobs in a community that needs tax dollars to fund police, right? Again, we're attracting educated professionals in therapy and counseling, which is so needed. So I'm asking the council and the community not to make our job harder of recruiting and bringing in educated, talented professionals to work hand in hand with your police officers in solving these crises. Because otherwise, we're just going to have this continued revolving door, and your police will never be able to keep up with the demand because we just have this revolving door. We got to solve the actual disease, not treat the symptoms. And my organization and my team members here, that hopefully you hear from as well, we're trying to solve that underlying disease. And we're asking the community not to make that harder for us. The last thing, and I guess along that same line, this church is run down, it's old. My partners, my business partners and I, along with the purchase of the building, are planning hundreds of thousands of dollars of renovation. That'll bring construction jobs to your community. It'll improve the look. It'll raise property values of the neighboring area, right? And again, we're offering the same services that people sought at the Presbyterian Church, right? Lastly, I guess the pitch I would have here for the council and the community, because I believe I'm also talking to the community. Like we're going to try to be good neighbors here, right? But the last pitch here is the benefit of living in frontier, rural Wyoming is that it's a small town. We work, we live, we're here with you. And we have the decision makers in the room. I believe there's an innovative and creative solution to get a win-win for everybody. I think the council and the community need our services. They need what we're doing here. Our clients need our services. I think the town, city, and community need our jobs. You need our capital investment from my partners and myself to help tackle the underlying disease here, not just treat symptoms with Band-Aids, right? So lastly, my last ask of the council and the community is don't make our jobs harder. And we can find an innovative and creative solution that keeps us here, keeps our jobs here, and keeps our services serving your community. And whether that's a special, some of the feedback we've heard is that what happens when you guys leave, right? We've rezoned it. Maybe somebody else comes in with not as great as intentions as we do. I would say to that first, we have no intentions of leaving. We're owned or operated here locally. We want to invest in your community right there with you. So we don't have plans on leaving. This is an investment in us saying, hey, we're here to stay long term. But two, I'm asking, is there not a creative, like we're not the city of Denver where we're so stuck in, we can't figure out a creative, awesome solution. I think we can find that innovative solution here that gives us, that keeps those services here, right? But it's like, maybe there's some kind of special thing where when we leave, that the ordinance or the zoning goes back. You know, it goes back to a church or something. I'm just asking, let's not just close the book on this. Let's figure out a solution because I truly believe it is a win-win-win for everybody involved. I have a couple of my team members that will talk as well, and I'll give the rest of the time to the community. But again, mental health has to be a priority in this community. And myself, my business partners, are willing to make capital and human resource investments into your community. And we just ask that you don't make that job harder because it is a very hard job as it is. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good evening. I don't love having my back to the room. So my name is Sarah Hughes. I see a lot of familiar faces here. I see a lot of familiar faces out here, a lot of my neighbors. So I'm kind of here to speak twofold because I work for Path Wellness. I was born and raised in the community, and I worked for 18 years for the school district. I just recently resigned, not because I don't love what I do, but because I saw an opportunity to provide supports more extensively within our community that is in desperate need of that mental wellness and support. Part of my job at Path is I'm a clinician. I'm a provisionally licensed counselor. So currently working on my licensure, I'm under supervision and hope to obtain that full licensure here February, March. And I also oversee all of our grant programs. So we partner with school districts within our community. Right now we have a partnership with Fremont One. We also have a partnership with Goshen County to provide clinical mental health services within the schools and connect with them and provide supports. We work with the Wyoming Department of Education. I was just at a statewide grant committee meeting to discuss how are we providing those services, what kind of supports are we putting in place, what's our structure for that to provide supports for some of those students in our schools that may not receive services in other areas. And then we also provide, which I'll let one of my other colleagues talk about, the case management piece of it. But we also provide case management services to help our students, to help our community members, to help our family members get wraparound services for various other things within the community. So we're an outreach to help them, support them with, maybe it's paperwork, maybe it's transportation to help support getting them to and from appointments, not just with us, but with other entities within the community. So this opportunity is going to open up a lot of opportunities for our community to receive the supports that they need and maybe help to break some of that stigma on the mental health crisis in our nation. What else do I got? I'm like Quinn. I'm an open book. A lot of you know where I live. Come knock on my door, please, within normal hours. But I'm happy to answer questions. I'm happy to direct your questions. If I don't know the answers to those, I'm happy to provide those supports and get you the answers that you need and work with you on that, because that's what we're about, is building our community. Yes, sir.
Councilman Larson.
You said you were like the previous Episcopal church. My question is, so you're only going to operate on Sunday?
Oh, no.
Oh, and so what is the hours of operation?
The hours of operation is dependent upon really the clinicians too, but typically we work like an 8 to 5 schedule.
So your doors are open at 8 o'clock and they're closed down at 5 o'clock?
Yes, sir. Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday?
Yes. So it's not nights, evenings, weekends. We're not an all-call facility. We have a community mental health partner that provides crisis intervention support. Not that we don't do that, but some of our things you're thinking about, like at the hospital when mental health facilities need called, that's not our facility at this time.
And so we're not housing anybody there. We're having office space and clinicians there with patients and coming and going, but that's it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and also, sorry, George prompted me up here. Monday through Friday, those business hours, we currently have an office in Lander, 431 Main Street, just right next to El Sol. So we're already operating in Lander, and we bought that building, completely renovated it. And we're currently operating in Riverton, it formerly known as Wyoming Counseling. We're on 8th and Sunset.
It's right across.
So yeah, we're already here. We're just looking to expand and offer more services. So we're already here operating in kind of that. We're in a house right now. We're in an older house. It's just we're grown too big for our britches. We need a little bit more space. So we're already operating in your community.
So when you say you're going to restructure that development, I'm looking at it on my map, and obviously everybody's got a visual in it. We have 2 lots there, and behind it is vacant, and to the side is vacant, and then we've got Teeter Park on the right, and in the front row we've got those houses. My question is, your interest in locating at the Episcopal churches because of the size or the location or the price or
yes,
people when they bought in Teeter Park, they bought that as a place to live. The church came in there as a place to worship. I've been in there many times to church services. And although you're doing the same job, the main concern that I see is, and it sounds like you're going to do a fantastic job and grow and become bigger. Do you feel like you're going to be expanding that footprint there?
That's a great question. So there's 2 questions in there. I'd like to address. The first one was like, what was, there was the first question, I actually spaced it, but I guess what I would say is, the reason why we're buying it. We're buying it for the location and size. We don't want, for mental health, it's not great to have a mental health facility that people don't have the ability to enter in we don't maybe necessarily want our neighbors to know that we're going through a divorce, right? And people seek services, counsel from us in those instances, right? So we want something maybe a little bit that has the ability, a little anonymity. There we go. So so that's one, and then two is the size. Yes, we do have a mental health crisis in the state, and in Wyoming, as far as states for suicide per capita, we rank number one, and we don't want to be ranked number one. We're the worst place in the nation per capita for suicide. So we have to, Path Wellness, we have to grow in order to try to tackle that problem, right? And so, to answer your first question, size and location both. Price, we're not out there trying to seek a good deal. We'll pay market prices, but we're more interested in the former. Whether we're going to expand or not on that footprint, current plans are no. We feel like we have a big enough facility, keep the open space around the way it is, and we'd be happy to, again, creatively, innovatively put that in something where it's like, hey, if we do want to expand, we got to come get permission.
But there is no facility there that will be housing anyone. It's just an office place where you can come and speak in anonymity and leave in the same manner.
Exactly right. It's a shoulder to cry on, a listening ear, counsel, guidance. Those are the services that we're offering. And when I say, those are same services churchgoers seek, I say that tongue in cheek, right? I'm not saying that we're a church, but I'm saying those services are the services my healthcare professionals and licensed professionals are giving.
Would you expand on what you're going to do on the inside, or is it just going to be a big make?
And sorry, I'm taking Sarah's time here, but I don't know if I don't know if necessarily she's the one to answer these questions. So the remodel is mainly, we feel like if you have a clean, great space, it's the same principle as if cleaning your room in the morning, you feel better. We want to have a really nice, clean office space that when people come in, they feel like they're home, they're in a safe space to be able to talk about these hard topics. So it's a remodel of the interior and maybe some exterior where we might not necessarily need a cross out front, right? So it's a facelift. It's a tummy tuck, My jokes aren't landing, sorry. I'm trying my best here. I'll turn the time back over to Sarah or anybody else.
That's really all I had as far as my position and the things that we're doing within the community to help expand, to help connect, to help people feel like they have supports and services, and offer opportunities to families. I'm going to speak for myself. I'm not speaking on behalf of the school district. I'm not speaking on behalf of PATH necessarily, but as an educator for 18 years, I saw kids come through our district that came from various backgrounds. They went through different things. One overarching need that I saw was families that also needed support, that maybe didn't know where to reach out. Sorry, I get kind of emotional about it. Because I love our community, I love our kids here, I love our families, and I saw kids within the community that maybe their families needed support. Maybe we did a great job from 8 to 3, giving them everything that they needed, and then we send them home. And it's nothing that bad is happening at home, that maybe they didn't have the supports and they didn't know where to reach. And so that's one of PATH's goals, is to provide opportunities for families to have an outreach, to know, hey, I can call here. I can reach out to case management. I can ask the schools, because my hope is to also be in our schools through the grant programs, through the Department of Education, to help support families and to help support our community. So it's more than just a building to me. It's about how do we help Riverton, how do we help Lander, how do we help Fremont County and how do we help our families and community members get support that they need in times that, maybe you just need a tune-up. Maybe you just need somebody to talk to. Maybe you need some longer-term treatment and support. We can provide some of those things without having an institution through that 8 to 5, through that Monday through Friday. So yeah, that's what it is. That's what I see it as. I also live in the neighborhood. I can see the front door from my porch. So I have an understanding of the community members' concerns in the neighborhood for what that might be. And so my hope is to be able to be a bridge between PATH and the community for questions, for anything like that that might come up tonight, or if you guys think of it in the next couple of days. I'm not too hard to find. My family has lived here my whole life. So you can find somebody that's connected to me probably. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Melissa Gachera. I'm a therapist and case management director for PATH Wellness. And I just really want to mention, it's like Quinn said, it's not a facility. No one's spending the night. I work 8 to 5 and then I go home to my family. I understand the concern. But also, I just want to mention that our business is helping our community. It's not going to, I was surprised at the pushback when I found out about it, and I understand if everyone thought it was a inpatient facility, but we're doing good things. We're not harming our community. Actually, our case management model brings our community members and helps them help their family members and brings money back into the community, which is amazing. I haven't been so excited about mental health since I found out about our case management model. That's about all, unless there's questions. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'll be very brief. The first thing I want to do is point out something that I've never done, and that is announce that I was late this evening. And normally I like to sneak in, but the reason why I was late is I was helping a member of your community that was in crisis tonight. And yeah, it was important for me to be there for him. To give you a little bit of background, I'm the clinical operations director at PATH. This is not my first career. Quinn talked about law enforcement and our partnerships. I want to point out that I'm a retired police sergeant from Utah, and I want to point out that I'm a therapist today because of what I saw for all those years in law enforcement. And granted, it wasn't in this community, but all communities need help. And I just would ask that you as members of the council and the community soften your hearts and listen to what we're trying to do in the community. This is a mental health clinic. That's what this is, and we're just trying to help the community. So thank you for your time.
What's your name?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Steve Angel, and that's Angel with 2 L's. All right, thank you.
That was awesome.
Sorry, I left this up here. Grab it.
It's been a while since I've been here, and all those faces up there are new. I came to Wyoming in 1977. I had just been discharged from the Army. I went to Japan and then to Korea in support of the Vietnam War. I was working at Fort Yates in North Dakota with the Hunk Band of the Sioux. So I stayed in the Army because in Korea I adopted my daughter. And so I was assigned to William Beaumont in El Paso. I was head nurse on GYN. November 1973, the Supreme Court said it was legal to kill babies. I told my chief, I can't do this. She said, you will, because you're in the Army. So I appealed to the Surgeon General's office, and in 2 weeks, I was on my way to the health career course at Fort Sam. And I was then assigned to Fort Gordon and Dwight Eisenhower Army Hospital. And it was interesting because for the first time, I began to feel a wave of anti-American, anti-God, anti-everything. I'm head nurse in pulmonary, and the assistant chief nurse was really pushing homosexuality. And I said to her, this is not honoring to God. Her reply was, knowing that I wanted to go to active reserve, that if your paperwork does not come through, you're going to go see the shrink. We left and arrived in Lander on the 10th of September. I don't know if she ever knew what happened. I'm telling you this because you people do not have the answer. The answer lies in what Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no man comes to the Father but by me. Come unto me, all you that are weak and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke on you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly of heart, and you will find rest to your souls. I'm a Presbyterian, Orthodox Presbyterian. This church has been empty ever since I've been here, with 2 or 3 or 4 people. What have they offered? When I challenged them, they knew that I did not agree with the way they were doing things. I'm telling you, Riverton people, there is no answer for our problems but a part of getting right with God. There is no other answer. And I'm telling you, I turned 90 on the 8th of July. I'm still kind of numb. But the Lord has a purpose for me. I love Riverton. I don't want to see it destroyed. These people who sit in this audience have worked hard for their houses. I have no guarantee that this thing will succeed or that the valuations of our property won't fail. I have lived in my house on Eastview for 40 years, and I've been faithful to try to keep it up. I'm seeing new children come in, and I say children, and they're not keeping their properties up. Do you hear my message tonight? Those of you who sit in judgment for the city of Riverton, you need God's help and His wisdom and His understanding if we're going to succeed what's coming down the pike. Mental health certainly is a challenge. When you've got TV and you have all of the electronic nonsense, and now you got AI coming down, and the banks are failing, the answer is not in more mental health problems. The answer lies alone in Jesus Christ. And I know you come from many different backgrounds, but His call to you is, come to me, all you that are weak and heavy laden, I will give you rest. I did not state my name, Barbara Joanne Dickinson, Lieutenant Colonel, retired Army Nurse Corps.
My name is Angel Arnold. I had zero intention of speaking tonight. I had zero intention of standing here and saying anything. And originally, I was here in support of my parents and the Riverton businesses and the call for attention that the Riverton Police Department desperately needs. But I think I offer a really unique perspective. I was a dispatcher at the sheriff's office for 3 years. I don't speak for them. I'm genuinely just speaking for myself. I have a sheet that was actually given to me by the lady that was just up here. She knocked on my door. I live on Eastview. And wholeheartedly, I genuinely did not want to see a mental health facility come into my neighborhood. But after hearing these folks speak, and then after hearing my neighbor speak, I just would like to say that I think it's a great idea. I'm a mother to 3 boys. I suffer from mental health problems myself. I have depression and anxiety, and this is terrifying right here. But I think that what these people are offering for people in the community who desperately need it, who desperately need somebody to talk to when they don't know where else to turn, families of police officers themselves, and anybody seeking anonymity, just to speak with anybody. I think that's a fantastic idea, and if it puts a bug in your brain to push it in the right direction, then that's all I need to say. I think it's fantastic, and I appreciate what everybody in the community and everybody here is doing in supporting what they think the right direction is. So, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Teresa King. I live at 927 North Broadway. So I'm outside the 140 feet, is that what it is?
Correct.
Demarcation, but I am a neighbor in this neighborhood. A lot of us were at the original zoning meeting, and a lot of issues were raised, a lot of emotion came out. A lot of people spoke out from their heart, from their fear. And so I'm here to kind of bring some perspective on what the neighbors have been talking about, because there is a silver lining to this. We've all been talking to each other and got to know each other again, and that's a good thing. This is a very residential neighborhood. We have a park that is used by all kinds of kids, grandparents, families. And the property is surrounded by single-family residential homes. When we talk about the zoning and the insertion of this kind of zoning, it's been done in multiple areas in our town. So I did a little research on where those areas are and how they are alike or different from our area for your consideration. The hospital is surrounded by other commercial entities. The U.S. Energy Building is not surrounded in the immediate area by any residential home. In fact, there are multiple zoning insertions in that area. The Miller Law Firm, the dentist office, are all part of that zoning that we're talking about. The old hospital area, which is now residential 2, if I'm not mistaken, has one lot that is the soldier's house that is commercial. Across the street, there's a dentist office. There's the Child Development Center, which takes up 2 lots. Behind that is the healthcare facility, which is Wind River Healthcare now, I think it was 12th Street Medical Building. So what these locations have, and there are a few other ones that are very specific. There's one down on the bottom of, I think, Majors and it's Adams. That's a duplex is there. So there's smatterings here and there, but they're very small. The larger areas, about the size of this lot, are in areas with similar uses in this zoning. That differs from us. There are strictly residential homes, no commercial businesses. There is a child care facility, and that is the only business within a very small radius. All the other businesses are on Webwood or Sunset. This group sounds wonderful. They would probably be wonderful neighbors, and I don't think we can dispute that. Their intentions are good. We need this in our community. But what we're asking you to consider, is this a good fit for this neighborhood? I did look up the uses of residentials 1, 2, and this one, and I have a handy little spreadsheet if anyone wants to see it, but it really does point out what this zoning change opens up. This group is wonderful. They're committed to being here long-term, possibly. What happens when you change the zoning is you change what can come in and what is possible. And that's where our concerns lie. This will change our neighborhood. It's inevitable. We sympathize with the church. 4 out of my 5 children were baptized in that church. We attended that church. It's sad what's happened. They were good neighbors. They're still good neighbors. But does the inability to sell your business, is that the reason to affect a zoning change that once the Presbyterian Church leaves, they're done? We all still live there. The ramifications for us are long-term and long-lasting. So it's not that we object to this business. We do not object to this business. Many of us, and I'm speaking for myself, it's needed. I just really want you to question and think about, is this the right location? Is this the right fit? The Jeffreys, who are neighbors across from the park, wrote a very thoughtful letter. And he spoke earlier about, can we come up with some solutions? Because we don't want to hinder businesses or things that are good for our community. So I'm not going to read their letter, but I will submit it so that the council can read it. But they did bring up the idea of a use variance or conditional use permit. And I believe this has been done in the past in our community. Rather than change the zoning, we could set up a use variance or conditional use permit that might allow the sale to go through and benefit our church, our beloved church, that a lot of us really are heartbroken as to what's happened to them and understand their need to sell. And that would benefit the business coming in, but it would not affect a permanent change that has long-lasting effects for those of us who live there. So it's something I hope you'll consider. I would like to give this to Mike, or whoever I need to give it.
Absolutely, I can receive it. Yes, thank you.
A lot of things have been said, and a lot of people have been characterized from crazy to fearful and a whole bunch of other things. But I want to bring it all back to the main issue, the zoning change and what that means. So if there's a way to work this out that we don't have to have a zoning change, that would be a good balance, and I think it would help a lot of us who have fear of what could possibly come in the long term, because the language is pretty broad. It opens it up to a lot of different businesses. This one's wonderful, but it opens it up to situations that we do have very big concerns about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I just love to hear myself speak here, but I think it's warranted. We're on the same page. Like, let's figure out a solution that lets us, use the property. But I will ask too, if that church sits vacant, what does that do to home prices, right? Dilapidated church. Is there another group that can come in and put some capital, some resources into getting that church up, right? So I think that also is just worth noting. But again, we're on the same page. I think us in the community are in agreement on that. Like, we would, that would work great for us. So.
All right, is there anybody else who wanted to speak?
I'm Lori Weber. I'm one of the members of the United Presbyterian Church. A few people ago, Barbara Dickinson spoke. She's from a different Presbyterian church. But anyway, I go to the one that is up for the rezoning. And I want to reiterate what the gentleman from PATH was saying. You have to also consider what's going to happen when the 15 of us shrink down to 10 or 5 or whatever. We cannot sustain that giant property to where it's looking good and it's a nice part of the community. I also wanted to say that I think one of the reasons PATH wants our location is because it is quiet. So they have a vested interest in keeping that a quiet community for the people who they are trying to reach out and help. That is not different to the historic use that the United Presbyterian Church had. About 20 years ago, we had a licensed counselor who was attending our church, and she offered counseling to our youth group. At that time, we had about 30 youth in a Logos program. And it was such a hit, there was such a need for the counseling that she offered, that she opened it up to community members. Didn't have to be a Logos youth to come in. And it was a great program. We had a lot of people come in and use her counseling. What she did, she offered 4 sessions or 5. It's been a long time ago since Sandy Larkham did this, but she offered counseling for a limited number of sessions for free, and then she would refer people to someone in the community. And it was a huge hit, and it brought a lot of people into our congregation. And then her husband was transferred out of state, of course, and that ended the program. But it's not a new concept to your community, because the Presbyterian Church, we did that at least 15, 20 years ago, and it was quiet, it was respectful. I don't think there was any big changes to the community when we were offering that ministry. So, thank you.
Rachel Meadow. Hi, everybody. I also didn't intend to speak, but I currently work for Fremont Therapy Group. I'm not speaking on their behalf. This is a personal matter. I treat people every day that are hurt and they're broken. And I can only fix so much. And what these people are trying to do is help the whole body. They're trying to help the whole body heal. I see so many people who are struggling with depression, anxiety, sexual assault, and those issues need to be addressed, and I can only do so much. And so I'm really asking you guys to consider the benefit to other businesses, not just physical therapy, but your own businesses, the police force, the firefighters, ambulance crews who see catastrophic accidents. Those people will also benefit. We're not just talking about the future of the community, that being the children. We're talking about everyone as a whole. And that's it. Thank you.
Hello. I'm Tanis Young Manning, and I live on Moose, just across from Teeter Park. I'm an educator of 47 years. I worked 40 years at Arapahoe. I worked in Casper, and now I'm working here in Riverton. I am very familiar with the need for mental health. Children should come first. It's a different day and age. I'm not objecting. None of us in this room, I can't imagine anyone objecting to this wonderful facility. I can't imagine anyone in their right mind thinking, I just can't imagine. That's not the issue. I'm going to say that again. It is not the issue. The issue is rezoning. And I think we need to keep on track here. So I wish them well. I wish them the best. It sounds wonderful. There is a need, but we need to stay focused. Do we accomplish this in Riverton? By rezoning. Putting an institution in the midst of a residential setting. For the city, I think you might want to consider that you will be opening up a Pandora's box. You will never close this lid again. What you will hear from this podium in the future, I can't imagine that either. So I think we need to be farsighted and focus. So it is rezoning is where we need to have our attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm Rowena Bland. I live in the neighborhood that we're talking about. I don't live in the 140 feet. When it was first brought to my attention, there was a lot of mystery about what was going to happen. And then I got active and decided I would do a little research. I did meet with Mr. Miller and talk to some of my neighbors and figured out what was going on, or at least what I thought was going on. And I am not opposed at all to what this gentleman is proposing. I understand that there's a mental health problem. I also understand that Mrs. Dickinson is absolutely right. And it's not just a city problem, it's a country problem, it's a world problem. We've gone too far away from God. That's where all the mental health problems really are. And I'm not opposed to the facility whatsoever at all. What I am opposed to is the rezoning. That is the issue. That's the true issue for all of us in that neighborhood, because you are opening up an avenue for whatever. If and when they decide that they don't want to be there, I understand that they're saying now they're going to invest. I get that. But as soon as it's rezoned, and it's happened more than once to my knowledge in this world, well, we're not going to do that now. We're going to do something else. And then they can do whatever they want, not them specifically, but somebody else could come in and do whatever they want in that neighborhood because it's been rezoned. I think that Mrs. King brought some very good points up, and if there's any viable solution in what she said or proposed, I don't have any solutions. I didn't do the research that she did. But if there are any solutions, viable solutions in what she proposed, I strongly suggest and strongly urge you all to consider those. And I'm pretty passionate about my neighborhood. I've been there for 35 years and never really got involved when they put the new street all the way through to Webwood. The traffic increased exponentially to the point where my husband's like, I think we better move. Well, you know, where are you going to move to? This is paid for, so we live here. So I think it's considered, I think it needs to be considered, strongly considered, some of her solutions or find better solutions. There are other buildings. And the other thing I guess I would say is that at some point in time, it is my understanding, I don't have firsthand knowledge of it, but that another church tried to buy the Presbyterian church a few years ago. And I guess one other thing I would say, if these folks are truly, as he said, and I'm going to quote him, we're kind of similar to a church, then why does it need to be rezoned? Because R2 has church right there in it. So why would it need to be rezoned if we're kind of similar to a church? That's just my thoughts. That's all I have.
Hi, my name is Tamara Ventura, and I am new to the neighborhood, so I've only lived there for a year and a half. We live at 309 Elk. A zone change is a big deal. It doesn't usually ever get reversed, and you will change the dynamics of our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is quiet. Everyone says it's quiet. Oh, you know, and I can't even say that word either. People won't notice that you're there. There's children playing at that park every single day. There's children riding their bikes and their scooters, which is wonderful to see because you barely ever see children outside anymore. And the traffic is going to change. When they put the utilities in on Sunset and all those cars had to go on Elk, I thought I was on a freeway. I'm like, holy cow. So I understand those people that live on Sunset with cars zooming by. all day long because they all came by my house around a blind corner. I was afraid to back out of my driveway. So Broadway goes through, you're going to have cars everywhere. And it might not sound like a lot, but it's a lot in a little residential neighborhood with a park that is surrounded. So we were designed to be a quiet neighborhood, and they didn't put a commercial zoning there. That wasn't their intention, and they did that for a reason. So I'm new. This town is riddled with empty buildings. I'm not against the mental health, but I do think that there are other solutions and there's other places. So please consider. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Borders with the motion, second by Councilman Bailey. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I declare the public hearing closed. Thank you, everybody, for chiming in. You give us a lot to think about, and I will tell you, anytime stuff like this happens and we have people willing to come to us with their concerns, it's humbling. So I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for people that have reached out by email, Facebook, whatever it is. You're not being ignored. So I guess before we go any further, I want to make sure you know that. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 23010 on first reading.
Your Honor, I think it might be too soon to actually act on this at this time, based on some of the conversation tonight. I would suggest we look at different options first before we go straight to this or nothing. That's my
Sure.
suggestion.
I hear you, Councilwoman. Mr. Miller, could you tell us a little bit more? There was brought up the idea of a variance or a conditional use variance. Can you talk a little bit about that for the listening audience and for the council, please?
Yes, Your Honor and Council. First of all, so the term variance and conditional use, we need to make sure that we use those terms really, really properly and make sure we follow them by statute. By state statute, a variance has a requirement to be able to go against the rules of a zoning district itself. There's a series of questions that have to be answered in a yes and no sequence, and they do have to be. A variance can be applied for, and those questions as part of that variance hearing would be asked, and those answers are directly for those. I would be happy to present those variance questions to the group to see what they are, and to said petitioners to see how they felt about how those would answer. Conditional use is slightly different. By statute, it's not regulated in that format. The problem with conditional use is you're entering into a legal agreement with an entity that may or may not exist shortly after you enter into that agreement. So there becomes some legal problems with using a conditional use for a zone of that type. Kind of thinking outside of the box, we have the ability, we have a PUD zone. And in a PUD zone, what we do is we depict directly the rules and regulations of that zone and how that zone applies. So other PUD zones that we have in the city are some of the apartment areas up by College View and some multi-use properties that are partially residential, partially commercial, and of the like.
PUD, Planned Urban Development, correct?
Yes, correct. PUD does stand for Planned Urban Development. And what that is that literally that we have some rules and regulations for PUD in our Riverton Municipal Code, but we do have the ability to do some dictation in there. It is absolutely correct when it's stated that a CO zone, the use regulations that we have in the CO zone under 1748.040 do apply to that zone. So if this business were to leave, other businesses that would comply to these use regulations and be held to those use regulations would be able to use that property. We don't necessarily legally have the ability to rezone and then rezone to revert back after end of contract. That would be another rezone process that would have to be a petition done at that time. We could look at some legal stipulations as to how we could possibly handle that, but my recommendation would be kind of twofold on that. I think we can look at a conditional use, but I think that there are some legal hurdles that we do want to make sure that we understand what giving conditional use is in an instance like this. It is binding to a certain extent in a way that we may not want it. And then we could potentially look at a PUD zoning designation instead of a CO zoning designation where council and staff have the ability to directly inflect the rules and regulations of that zone moving forward. And that's a private agreement, similar to a subdivision agreement that's attached, that's recorded to the property itself.
Thank you for that information.
Your Honor, can
Yes, ma'am.
I also say if we go ahead and look at some of those, I think it'd be wise to hold another public hearing and see how the residents in that area and surrounding area feel about the conditions, just to see if that's more acceptable or not acceptable to them as well.
And I will say for a variance, for example, that actually has to come from the Planning Commission, and those questions have to be answered at the Planning Commission meeting. There would be another public hearing at the Planning Commission before that would even come before the council. Isn't that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, Counsel, you're absolutely correct. A variance restarts the process. We've looked at variances before in recent history. We did a fencing variance last year that we looked at, and there was some direct. We got into those direct questions, but those variances do get formally read. If we were to restart as a PUD, that would restart the rezoning process. We're looking at a different zone than what has been what has been transpired. If we look at a conditional use, we have the ability to continue on in the readings that we have moving forward right now. Look at a conditional use with this. If we potentially seem to move forward, then we can continue in the three-step process that we have moving forward right now with the zone that we're requesting with a potential conditional use. And we can move forward and not change the time frame in which the project is for the time being, but while we're doing that, we can look into and discover other solutions. And if we choose that another solution, say PUD would be the direction that we wanted to go, then we would be able to step back and punt at that time. So we kind of have the ability to move forward in this way potentially, and move forward in another direction potentially, and change our direction in the future. If we stop today, we need to restart from scratch anything, no matter what. And we can do whatever council sees fit, no problem.
All right. That information is helpful. I appreciate it. Mr. Bailey?
Well, Your Honor, and again, I like what we've heard tonight a lot, and I really hope we can come up with a solution, because I'd love to see this business grow, because I think there is a definite need for it. But I guess one of my other main concerns is I don't want to see the Presbyterian Church fail and abandon their building, and then the neighborhood has an abandoned building that the windows all get broken out of, and the homeless people move in, and then we really have a problem that will destroy the neighborhood far worse than a little more traffic or something like that. So I think everybody needs to know that we are anxious to come up with a good solution for everybody that fits in everybody's needs. And I think we can reach that. And so I would suggest that we have our community development director and staff look at what our options are and maybe bring it to us next time. And we could table, would it be appropriate to table this for the next meeting possibly until we know, or?
We could actually vote it forward and have two more readings to not approve it.
We can do anything. At this point, I don't even have a motion. So if I don't have a motion in any regard, we're moving on to the next item. So and that's not a problem. We don't have to move it forward. This can come back in a different form at a different time if there's not a motion today. So there doesn't have to be a tabling. It's just if there's not a motion, there's no action. And we would start over again somewhere else, and that'd be all right too.
Your Honor, could we ask the purchaser what his timeline is or time frame? I mean, I don't want to burn the chocolate milk.
Mr. Peterson, do you have any sort of time constraints?
We do, and that's just due to the growth. We have recently recruited another therapist from Montana to relocate into your community. And again, jobs, taxes, all those benefits come, professionals, right? And so we right now are at capacity in our current Riverton building. And so, yes, we are under a timeline if we want to continue the growth in the work that we're doing. Now, am I, like, we're flexible. We're community members. We are your neighbors. We are your fellow churchgoers, right? So we will work with the city and with the community to find that innovative, creative solution. Path Wellness Solutions, that name is deliberate. We are a solutions company. Let's get a solution that I think is acceptable for everyone. So my answer, while I might be speaking out of both sides of my mouth here, that's unfortunate, sometimes my duty here, but we are on our timeline, but we do want to work with the community. Is that a sufficient answer?
I think so.
Okay.
Your Honor, can I ask a question? I'm just wondering if a church could operate in R2, what makes you unable to do that? Why the zone change?
I think it's tax related. I could be wrong though. I believe if a church was operating in R2, I don't see why we couldn't. Again, I don't. The services we're offering are very similar. Now, and again, I'm not saying, you know, I am a religious man, and I also believe that you know, religion and God and in Christ can are benefits to the community as well. I'm not saying that, but we do, I think, offer a similar service to those that need that shoulder to cry on, that lending ear, you know, that guidance and counsel. So yeah, I don't know why we couldn't. Maybe George, is there something you could maybe?
Well, it's the ordinance as well.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what Mr. Miller would say. When you have uses, when you're talking about zoning, you have specific limits on uses, and so they're listed. And R2 is multifamily dwellings, preschool educational facilities duly licensed by the state, public schools for elementary, high school education, churches and church schools, public libraries, museums, municipal recreation uses, bed and breakfast inns duly licensed, daycare facilities duly licensed.
So I got to open up a B&B, bed and breakfast?
Right.
Hey, that joke landed.
Now you're
Got
right
one.
back to resident.
I got one, at least. That's all I needed. So I mean, we're willing, if we can find a way to fit into the R2, let's find a way to squeeze us in. But yeah, like, you know, with any capital investment, we do need to deploy the capital. I do have to find a place for my employees to operate out of, and I got to have a place for your community, your neighbors, to come seek services. So,
and I think that the point from the council is, I think the council's interested in trying to make something work. But at this point, in terms of running a meeting and being sensitive to the fact that if I sit here and just say, we're going to keep talking about this without a motion, we're kind of a little bit out of order.
Your Honor, I'll make the motion to continue with the ordinance if I get a second, mainly so that we can keep having the conversation.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilman Peranto and a second by Councilwoman Cox.
am I no longer needed up here?
Well,
Sure, go ahead.
I just have a
Now we
question.
can discuss.
So, like I said, I think some of this is really fresh to many people in the community and
Yeah.
coming forth and not understanding what you're doing. So I think taking some time to let people understand and set it up correctly, does that look like it would fit in your timeline? Or you want to 1, 2, 3 and?
No, I don't, I think
That's what I think
that
you're
fits
asking.
that fits in our timeline, and maybe.
Because I think that's important, because people knowing if it's, a lot of people are concerned if you leave or what's going to happen in
Yeah.
the community. It is a
When I
long time standing residential place. And so I think if we take the time, let other people understand what's going on. I mean, many in the community have already, but there's a lot more in the neighborhood that may
Yeah.
have not known any of this information that you presented tonight, so.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess two things is, you know, we are committed to be good neighbors. And so if we needed to do some sort of open house where we can invite the community in, learn about our services, meet the people. But again, I don't think the concern is, from what I'm hearing from the community, the concern isn't what we're doing. They're happy to welcome us, what we're doing. They just want to find a better zoning way to squeeze us in the R2 or PUDs or FD, I don't know what else the other acronyms would be, right? But single-use variants or something. Okay, but anyways, find a way to squeeze us in there, and we'll be good neighbors. Sure, I get that. And if the community wants to bring forth a location, put forth taxpayer money to help us get into something, a different location, we'd be open to that as well. Right? So if there's interest in keeping us here in the community and interest in our services, and there's other options out there as far as commercial locations that fit our needs, I'd be all about it. Let's hear from the city council and the city if there's any, tax breaks or incentives that you guys can offer us to get into a different commercial space.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson.
Yep.
Is there any other discussion on the motion?
Your Honor, do we need to change the motion to make the adjustments, or are we voting on keeping it as is?
Your Honor, I'd like to amend my motion.
Okay.
You've got a motion to amend the motion.
And my amended motion is that we work with the city planning and come up with a solution that will either necessitate moving forward with the current zoning change or a completely different zoning change. But my motion was so that we could have the conversation, still follow the rules of order, and move the conversation forward.
Second.
All right.
So let's vote on the amendment, Your Honor.
So now we have a motion to amend the motion to basically make the motion a nullity.
Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Get clarification on the amendment to the motion. To
Yes, sir.
include in the minutes.
Councilman Paranto, could you provide some clarification?
Absolutely. My first motion was to move forward with the zoning change. My amendment to my motion is that we direct city staff to obtain additional information with other possibilities for potentially a variance or a conditional use or a PUD option.
And Your Honor, for also further clarification, does this amendment include a recommendation to approve as presented? So it recommends approval, but also direction to explore other options.
That would be correct.
Thank you.
And Your Honor, that's also with the pretense that we have 2 more readings.
And Your Honor.
Mr. Bailey.
And this is not unusual that we get public comment on a ordinance, and we instruct staff to help us come up with possible changes. And so I think this fits in with our normal operating mode, even though it is a little bit weird to sort of move forward on something that might not pass on its entirety, just as it stands.
Thank you.
And Your Honor, just from a point of order, is there a second on this?
Second.
There's a second from Councilwoman Cox. All right, so if I understand correctly, the original motion was to adopt ordinance 23010 on first reading, which is to adjust the zoning according to the title, which is replat, or the designating the rezone of Presbyterian Church Edition, replat lots 2 and 3 from residential R2 to CO, although my script says R2A, it is CO. It's my understanding that this motion is to amend that motion to say, well, that's what we're wanting to push forward, but we are wanting to continue to have staff directed to look at other options besides CO zoning. Is that correct?
So far, so good.
Yes.
That's your second. Okay, any other discussion on the amendment to the motion?
Just that it needs to be conditional.
Well, that's the discussion moving forward, sir.
Yeah. That's the intent. They're not interested in CO. They're interested in the facility. They're interested in the upkeep of the building. They're interested in the service. but they don't want to go CO because they're smarter than they look. They've been around the block. This isn't their first rodeo. Yeah, I said it.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. I guess the only issue that I have with the motion as it stands is we can get to the same place if we just direct staff to look at this and look at different options. I mean,
Your Honor, if we don't move that forward, then they can't bring CO back to the council. So they would have to come up with some other alternative, but this also doesn't affect the timeline for those that need the timeline moving forward.
see what you're saying.
Speeds up the timeline a little better.
Mm-hmm.
While
We've still got-
while still achieving
Still
the same
plenty
goal.
of public meetings for.
Because we still have 2 more public meetings and 2 more votes that need the rule of 5. So we still have ample time to not move forward with CO or change the direction with this motion.
So it'll be still into August.
Mr. Butterfield, is there any reason why we couldn't, on second reading, if this was going to be a zoning change, change it from residential R2 to something different with an amendment on a second or third reading?
There's no reason.
Your Honor, I'd love to look into that question. From what my gut is telling me is you have a recommendation from the Planning Commission, and by what's written in the municipal ordinance, the Planning Commission hears the proposal first as it's been vetted by staff, and then that recommendation from the Planning Commission is then given to you. So to then change it to a different zone, seems that you are stepping out of that process, but I'd need to look into it.
Okay. All right, any other discussion on the motion?
Yes, sir. Which time then we could just we could vote against the zoning to CO, which I motion to do, and then we can bring it back up in a different way at that point.
I see what.
Should it not follow into the line that it needs to follow. In essence, this motion buys us some time to have the discussion without affecting the end timeline. Should it fail ultimately, it will fail ultimately. I'm not for changing the zoning, to be clear, to CO, but I'd like to have the discussion to move it forward.
Okay, any other discussion?
This is on the amendment.
On the amendment only? Yes, sir. Other
One
discussion?
last so, Mike, how do you feel about it?
How do I feel about it? I absolutely agree with the motion, with the information that's been brought up by the public and the way that the questions that are coming from council. The direction that I see allows us to move forward if there is a way to make this work. If we vote against it, then CO becomes an issue where in the future, if that's where it needs to be with a conditional use and we vote against it today, I can't bring forward a CO from the same petitioner. It becomes a problematic way to rule. So that allows us to explore the option of making CO work with a conditional use or variance, or it allows us to step back and punt. Just to clarify, if we were to change to, say, PUD or a different zoning designation, it would need to rerun full run. It would have to go back through Planning Commission and go through and it's a longer process than just the 4 meetings. There's actually 30-plus days that it needs to have public information and moving forward before it hits the first public hearing. But that would need to change, but we would have the ability to move forward. I believe the motion is correct, that it does buy us time to explore our options and move forward.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike, for all the work you've done on this. I appreciate it. It's
Yes,
really stepped up to the plate, so thank you.
This one's been a good one.
Your Honor,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Peterson, is that something that's workable?
Yeah, I think we're in agreement as long as we're not having to go back and start the whole process over. I think the amendment works for us.
Okay, thank you.
I think we're on the same page.
In Your Honor, I think for clarification, you will have to start the process over again because there's a due process requirement and a notification requirement as brought up by Mr. Miller. And so to your previous question to me, that's why I said my gut's telling me you got to start over. It's because the neighborhood has been noticed that this is the proposed use. They've had opportunity to respond to that proposed use. If that proposed use is going to change to a different zone,
You have to redo it.
they need to have opportunity
Yep.
to hear what that is and respond in this public manner.
And I guess that was kind of my point.
That's
If
the
there was going to be a PUD or something like that, if we were going to be doing a different zoning option, this isn't really doing anything for us, other than saying we're keeping open the possibility of having this be a CO. That's all we're doing with this.
With conditional use.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And this is on the amendment only. Okay, all opposed say nay. I vote nay. Motion passes. All right, on the main motion then, as amended, any other discussion on that?
Would you state that again?
You
Move
confused
forward
all
with
of
the CO,
us.
but it's been amended.
Basically saying we're wanting to move forward with it as the ordinance as indicated, but giving direction to staff to look at other options, passing it conditionally on the first reading, that we would be looking at other options at the second reading.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. I vote nay again. Motion passes, so this passes first reading. All right, fiscal year '24 contract for service agreements. Administrative Services Director's report, please.
Thank you.
Maybe wait till everybody.
You're just a naysayer.
So do you have this effect on the crowd normally, Mia? Is what my question-
I do. As finance director, I always have had this effect on the crowd.
We can have a brief recess if we want to make it more comfortable for people to leave.
Yeah.
Maybe we should.
How about we do a 5-minute recess and come back at 9:11?
So moved.
Seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're in recess.
Kyle moved, and I think Diesel.
I declare we are back in regular meeting as of 9:12 PM. If we could go back to where we were discussing fiscal year '24 contract for service agreements. Administrative Service Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Each year, the city receives direct distribution funding from the state of Wyoming. We utilize this money towards one-time purchases and capital projects. Historically, the city has provided some funding to local programs and organizations that benefit the community's citizens. We do not, as a city, have direct oversight over these organizations, and they're not maintained as city departments. During the budget process this year, the City Council approved funding for $275,000 to 13 entities. I am not going to read the approved funding as it was approved in the budget process unless you as a council desire me to do so. The term of each of these contracts is from July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. The city's obligation to pay the entities for services is conditional upon the availability of funds, which we've always managed to uphold in our budget in my years here. Funding requests of $5,000 or less will be distributed in one payment, and requests over $5,000 will be provided quarterly. The staff has provided copies of each one of these individual contracts to you in your packet for review. And at this time, you as a council do have the authority to amend any or make a request for amendments to the contracts. But as it stands, we do, as staff, recommend approval of the contracts as presented.
Thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the proposed community contracts for service funding agreements to the approved community service providers for the 2023-2024 fiscal year.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Larson with the motion, second by Councilwoman Borders. I think that was your voice.
Yes.
Any discussion? I have a little bit of discussion, if I could, Mrs. Harris. It's my understanding, I spoke to Mike Jones from the County Commission. He had said that there was funding that may have been provided from the county for the proposed roofing project for the Riverton Senior Center. We had said that we would fund this $10,000 if that was something that was still needed. If not, I think we had discussed having it go to Eagles Hope. Is that what we had said, or what had we said? I'm trying to remember the meeting. Do you remember, Mrs. Harris?
I don't off the top of my head, Your Honor, but I'm certainly willing to reflect back on the minutes and get that information for you.
I just recall that as we were discussing it, we were saying that we wanted this $10,000 to go to them if it was needed, and if not, we had had.
That sounds familiar.
And I did miss that meeting, Your Honor, but I agree, I don't think we should let people double dip, which is what happens sometimes. They go to people because they don't know if they're going to get it from us, so they go ask multiple people. But if they get it from somebody else, they shouldn't be able to, if they ask for $10,000 from 3 different people and they need $10,000, they shouldn't be able to get 30 in the process, I guess.
Well, and our discussion at the time was that there was $30,000 that was being requested. That was a pretty old, as I recall, estimate. They also went to the county half-cent fund and requested it. And in speaking with Mr. Jones, that may have been approved by the county commissioners. I'd have to go back and look at the minutes. And if so, they've provided that $30,000 that they requested, and it wouldn't make it necessary for us.
If I may, Honor, it looks like they requested $31,000 in their original application. So you're under the impression that the county has approved $30,000 for that?
Yes. What I would suggest we do is we separate out that contract, if there's a motion in that regard, and then we consider it at a later date and find out a little bit more information. I just spoke with Commissioner Jones yesterday, and that's when we had discussed it, and it sounded like it was, I'd have to go back and check the minutes for the county commissioners' meetings. I'm not certain, but as Mr. Bailey said, Councilman Bailey said, I mean, generally speaking, the purpose of this $10,000 was to go to the roof. If they've been funded elsewhere, then I would think we'd want to consider that separately.
Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Could we make a motion then to approve the funding to those organizations in the amount of $265,000, with $10,000 being held, escrow, whatever you want to call it, for the Citizen Center in determination of whether they've got their funding, if they have their funding, to give it to Eagles Hope.
Second.
Okay. That would be, I guess we had a motion by Councilman Larson and Councilwoman Borders seconded to approve the community contracts for services funding agreements as presented. This would be an amendment then to that, and a second by Mr. Bailey, so we'd have to vote on the amendment.
It was Councilwoman Cox for the second.
I wrote down Borders.
Sorry. Can't sit.
Oh, it was the second for the, no, it was the second, well, never mind. Any other discussion on the amendment as presented by Councilman
Can I
Larson?
amend the amendment?
No, no, we're done with that. Any other discussion?
So should we have Mia look up the minutes, or?
Do you want to do that right now? Do we want to wait a minute to check that out?
Your Honor, we've gone through the minutes, and there's nothing in writing that references how you wanted to prioritize those funds. It just states in the minutes that you were going to fund $10,000. We can go back at another time to listen to the recording, but there's nothing in writing.
And I guess I don't remember exactly, your recollection was, I don't know. It doesn't matter. I guess the point would be that we would consider reallocating that $10,000 to another entity.
Correct.
If they don't need it in the Senior Citizen Center, is that correct?
Correct.
Is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Is that your second? Does that sound good?
Yes.
Your Honor, can we just confirm that Mia and Max have that motion?
We have a motion, first of all, from Councilman Larson, seconded by Councilwoman Borders, to approve an amendment by Councilman Larson and a second by Councilman Bailey to reallocate, to approve with the reallocation of funds to the Senior Center to Eagles Hope, $10,000.
Or to another entity?
Yeah, or
Just reallocate it, not to.
Just reallocated to one of
So we're separating out the $10,000 from the original 275,
Okay.
making it 265, holding the 10,000 after we investigate, see whether the county already funded the project.
And it doesn't have to go, the original motion was Eagles Hope, but if we want to discuss that more, we don't have to.
We could do that when
we
we
can do
decide
that
what we're going to do with it.
So
Next.
just reallocate
on it
it
next.
without a specific.
We clear now?
Yes, Your
Yes, Your
Honor.
Honor.
I think what you're saying is you want to approve the contracts with the exception of the senior center.
That's correct.
Correct.
And at a later date, you can discuss priority.
Sounds good.
Because you don't have the information at this time.
Correct.
All right, that's the amended motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Amendment, back to the original motion, which is the amended motion. All in favor of the
265.
contracts for services as discussed with the separation of the Senior Citizen Center, say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Okay. We clear?
Yes, sir.
All right. I will try to find out more, and I apologize. As I said, I just found out about that yesterday, and if they've not been funded, we can come back and look at that.
Correct.
Thank you for your attention to that. All right, council committee reports and council members roundtable. Let's start with Councilwoman Borders today.
Your Honor, of course, we talked about the Finance Committee meeting earlier. I did miss the last pause meeting. I was out of town and couldn't make it. So one thing I do know is that they're planning the Paws and Pearls event on September 9th. And they're also gathering items for continuing their yard sale. Don't have a date on that yet, but I'll keep everyone posted. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilwoman Cox?
I attended the EDGE committee meeting last week. We had 6 applications submitted, and it's always fun to hear people's ideas and new projects coming to town. We will meet this Thursday to go over those applications again, and then they'll make their decision on what they bring to us. I did not attend the rec board meeting last night. But I did want to say I had a great weekend with all of the festivities. Went to the balloons with my kids, car show downtown, and even tried the balloon glow, but didn't happen because of the wind. But the amount of people that were still there with the wind, it was just really nice to see the community come out for that. So it's always one of my favorite weekends of the entire year. So great job.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. All right, Councilman Bailey.
Your Honor, I had no meetings that I attended since we met last. Again, I did get to participate in the balloon rally, and thank you for the pictures of me taking off first on Sunday. It was an amazing weekend. I mean, we went to the Friday night cruise. There was tons of people out, lots of cool cars to look at, and I mean, the whole weekend, I think they flew the balloons all 3 mornings, which is not normal. Usually they lose one at least to the wind or whatever. So, I mean, we had a great turnout of balloons. We had a wonderful ride. We actually got to do, our balloonist took us down, dunked us in the canal, picked us back up, and flew over and landed.
It was hot.
Splash and dash, they called it. So that was very unique, and we had a wonderful ride and a great time. So it was awesome.
Sounds like fun. I guess before I move on too far, what time is the meeting for Edge? It's at 6, is that correct?
Yep.
On Thursday. Okay. Councilman Paranto.
Well, Your Honor, I'd like to thank the council for excusing me from the July 5th meeting. My wife and I traveled out to the ARC experience out in Kentucky, and that was a pretty amazing boat built out in the middle. Found the ARC, as it turns out, it's in Kentucky on a hill. Just a really neat experience. The airport board meeting was rescheduled, the June meeting was rescheduled to this coming Friday, the 21st at 8 a.m. It'll be here in the council chambers. The Fremont County School District 25 Rec Board approved the budget for 2024 in the amount of $189,671.00. And I also wanted to encourage residents to come back to our next meeting to discuss the ordinance 23010 on the Presbyterian Church. I think it's really important to have that public input, not just for us to have it, but for the public to have that input. In talking with a few people that were leaving, it was noted that some of them might be in favor of either an ordinance change or something to make it work. So I think it's fair to continue to have the discussion and to get additional public input and just give everybody a voice. Whether it fails ultimately or whether it moves forward, I'd really look forward to that discussion. And unfortunately, this last weekend is the first time I've missed the festivities, but my daughter-in-law is very pregnant, so we went and visited my kids to celebrate another spin around the sun for me. So we went and saw them, and I gave all this up just to see my kids. Just want to point that out. It's very disappointing. But I enjoyed my kids.
Good father.
Yeah. Well,
and soon to be grandfather.
Yeah, pretty excited.
Yeah. Councilman Larson.
Had an enjoyable time at the solid waste meeting on Monday.
Nobody ever says ever.
Yeah, it is a joy. But looking on today's budget that we approved of $55,654.40 for solid waste, that is approximately $30,000 less than it was in 2014 on an average. It was an average anywhere up to 95,000 down to 75,000. Now it's 55,000. The importance in that is that we're putting less waste over in Lander. The importance of that is we're spending the money somewhere else. That's the good part. Secondly, we spent $2 million on the transfer station in Lander transfer station in Du Bois, and we're spending lots of money. And so we went deficit $4 million. We took that out of reserves, out of the 21 million that we started the first year. So we are eating up that cushion rapidly. Second thing was, I enjoyed tonight's meeting. I really feel that when we get that many people out from the community, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. That's a wonderful thing. And that unites us, doesn't divide us. I realize that the police department is under pressure. We know that. Mike has done his pull to share. He's outfitted them. He's done everything he possibly could to help the police department. And I think that our new chief of police will direct that and help us in that manner. Finally, my dog really doesn't like balloons. And I had to sedate him 3 days in a row. But he doesn't like firecrackers either. And he gets sedated with firecrackers. So viva la balloons and viva la fireworks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Larson.
So we need to look into how you treat your animals.
Yes, yeah.
So I met with Patrick Edwards with the Wyoming Business Council and Jack Schmidt, our new person on the edge, last Wednesday morning. In regard to the co-op, they're trying to get a board for the food and co-op downtown. And so basically the meeting was to talk about some things that might be coming out with the Wyoming Business Council. And Jack just wanted a bunch of names to contact people because they really want to get that going in a timely manner. It was a really interesting meeting, so that was good. And then on Thursday, the chamber meeting, it was a 2-hour meeting, but the main points, Heidi Peterson with the Wyoming Chamber came and gave us lots of guidance and suggestions moving forward on ways to help fund and run the chamber, which is nice. James Bunker has been amazing. He puts blood, sweat, and tears. Him and Devin, Kathy Rosenthal, they hauled all the bales down in the heat for the soapbox derby race, and they've just gone a lot. The whole chamber board has been putting in a lot of time and effort to support the community in a lot of ways. And Heidi said, even though we're struggling and broke always with the chamber, our group does twice as many things as many of the chambers, and so they're just trying to get them all back on track and get their feet under them. But we have some really amazing people. We have new board members, Morgan Doyle, Kelly Albright, Terry Hurd, and Victor, I can't remember his last name, but so it was a really good meeting, and I just see growth with it over the last couple of years, and it's moving in a really good direction, so.
Good to hear. Mr. Butterfield.
Yes, Your Honor, I won't repeat some of the things that have already been said, but I do want to make note that this week we did have the State Office Task Force, the Legislative Joint Committee, meet and explore opportunities in Riverton for a state office building to be either built here or amend a current facility to accommodate that. There will be a follow-up meeting later this month with that task force, and I would like to say that thing seems to be moving forward, not just at a rapid pace, but at a positive pace. There was also a legislative task force meeting as it relates to the statewide shooting complex. That was last week, and there will be continued meetings moving forward on that as the state looks at an appropriate location. And if you read the news reports, one that does not have a lot of wind.
We have places like that here.
We do have places like that here.
It's called indoors.
Tomorrow there will be a meeting sponsored by the Wyoming Business Council and the Insight Program. As a reminder, the Wyoming Business Council partnered with Insight, and the This is a group that wants to market different properties in the state of Wyoming as development opportunities. We were able to propose the Eastern Shoshone Business Park. We were one of very few properties selected for that. And tomorrow morning at the college at 8:30, they will be continuing that effort. Mr. Eggleston has been really helpful in that as they've looked at utilities and other items that could promote the development of that site. We have an Urban Systems Committee meeting tomorrow. This committee is very similar to the Fix Our Road Citizen Committee, except it's with state funds that are received and administered by the Department of Transportation. That's at 1:30 in the bullpen. And with that, I just want to echo the kudos to the people that participated in the events of the weekend, and especially our city staff members that supported the committees that made a lot of the events happen.
What's the deal on airport loading bookings?
As far as bookings go, Your Honor and Councilman, June recorded the third highest June in the last 20 years. The only years that beat it was 2021 and 2008. We're tracking above 7,500 employments thus far. And our load factors, each week I get a report on that, and we're trending at around the 70% range. We did just get our subsidy report, and for the month of June, the subsidy required to SkyWest was only $20,000.
That's awesome.
One of the cheapest we had. Now, the converse to that is the average ticket price was $130. So we've heard some feedback from the community that the fares are a little bit too high. We're working with SkyWest and their revenue management team to ensure that we're competitive with our other markets. The value you see is that it costs less on the community coffer. But air service is performing well. We had, for the month of May, the second highest month for the month of May, and June was the third.
It's great. In the last 20 years. All right. I will be quick with my comments. I did have the chance to listen in on the Riverton State Office meeting. One of the things that was heartening to hear about that is the fact that they are looking at and thinking about sites, to me, sounds like they're pretty serious. It's meant to still be exploratory and in nature. I would note that they had a lot of help from city staff, and I appreciate that, Mr. Butterfield, in terms of providing different ideas of locations and either locations that could be improved or refurbished, or locations to build if they were to build a new building. But to me, my impression from that was definitely that they're taking it seriously and they are looking at it seriously and they are trying to come up with what they're going to do quickly. And I appreciate their hard work in that regard. I think we are well represented with our local legislators who sit on that task force. They've been very attentive, chaired by our local representative, Ember Oakley, well represented, I think, by Senator Salazar as well as Representative Larson. So we are being considered very seriously for a state office building. And I think that is definitely work that I've appreciated, and I appreciate our city staff for staying very on top of that, being there, being willing to work with it, as well as Idea Inc. Mr. Krishishnik has been to all of those meetings and has been trying to support how he can. And I definitely appreciate his work in regard to Insight as well. That's been a lot of work he's put into that. As I understand it, this meeting tomorrow is like a dry run in terms of what they're looking for. If they were to bring somebody in, considering to move to the Eastern Shoshone Business Park, what would they be looking for, that sort of thing. So very glad to have them here, and I think it's got good things for Riverton. I really enjoyed the Rendezvous Balloon Rally. I enjoy that every year. We sponsored a balloon. I had three of my three middle children go up in the balloon. It was a lot of fun. Our pilot was amazing. Jeannie Anson. I think her first name is Jeannie, although some people called her Jen, so I could be wrong. She really did a great job at, I think, showcasing what her balloon could do, and she's from South Dakota, which is okay. She had her crew that came from Cheyenne. Now, her crew from Cheyenne are actually naturalized citizens from the Czech Republic. So their first language was Czech, and they spoke English quite well, but they love Thai food. And there's not really many Thai restaurants in Cheyenne, and every single day that they were here, they ate as many meals as they could at Thai Chef 2. So I will say, we do have restaurants that are going to cause people to come from Cheyenne here in the future, and they have said they will be back. And Jeannie's husband, Tom, does not usually like Thai food, but he was pressured into eating there and really enjoyed it, and so he may be back to eat there too. But
They do have good restaurants.
they do.
We do all over town. They're like,
Yes. And I think our community did a very good job at being welcoming. I felt like any of the sponsors that were there that were involved, it just really was a good showing. And we had a lot of people that turned out. It's one of the biggest events that we have every year, and I think our community made itself proud and really showcased what we have to offer. And I appreciated all the hard work from city staff. I noted that Cindy Harris is now serving on the Rendezvous Balloon Committee. I appreciate her hard work. And just as a committee, you do so very well at making that happen. And I thank you for it. We had the UW Board of Trustees meeting here in the county. I was able to go to their shindig over in Lander. I will say that I think that UW is trying to expand its offerings, trying to make sure that they're doing well at having different options for our state, and I appreciate their hard work. And it was good to be able to see some people that I knew and was familiar with and meet some people I hadn't met before. But it was a good opportunity, and appreciated them hosting us at that. I missed the EDGE meeting for that, and I wonder if it was the right choice, because the EDGE meeting sounds like it was really good presentations, so.
You can come on this Thursday.
I'll be there. That's why I wanted to make sure I had the time.
Yeah.
But that's all I have to report. I will say we've had ongoing discussions. I know that we had a lot of people talking about our police department tonight. I'm going to tell you, our police department is full of very hardworking, dedicated public servants who take their job seriously. I have the chance to be able to rub shoulders with them regularly, and I would put them up against any other group of law enforcement for their dedication to the work and for their willingness to go above and beyond to make sure that they're doing everything to protect our city. They are a very good group of men and women who represent our city very well, and I understand concerns that people have expressed. I hear them. We are talking about a lot of different things. And regardless of anything else that's been said, I think it's important that people understand we are well served by our police department, and we are trying to make sure that we have good people there. So I guess pass that along to your officers, not just your officers, but your detectives and your dispatch. There's a lot more that goes into the police department than just officers, and I think sometimes we forget that, but you have very good men and women behind you, and I appreciate them. All right, I think that's all we have. We don't have an executive session, is that correct? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Larson, second by Councilwoman Borders. All in favor, say aye.
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 This meeting is adjourned at 9:41 PM.